to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Four. Take a deep breath in, and on the out breath, just relax those eyelids and close your eyes. That's right. And as you breathe in, imagine breathing in a feeling of calm and relaxation. And as you exhale, just imagine that tension or stress is leaving your body. That's right. I want you to use the power of your imagination to imagine healing white light. Imagine as you breathe in, that healing white light goes in through your nose, filling your body with a feeling of calm and relaxation. And when you exhale, I want you to notice that that color is darker, that tension, that stress, that anxiety is leaving your body. Breathing in a feeling of relaxation and exhaling any tension. And I want you to notice that healing white light can move to different parts of your body. So as you breathe in through your nose, just imagine that healing white light starts going around your eyelids and your eyes, so they feel really, really heavy and relaxed. As you exhale, just notice that it's still dark and shadowy, that good things are going in and any worries are going out. Continue to breathe in that feeling of relaxation and calm. And as you exhale, continue to feel that tension and stress leave your body. And now I want you to imagine that all of that healing white light is accumulating around your neck and your shoulders. I want you to imagine that it's melting away any tension, that your shoulders, your neck just starts to feel more and more relaxed. That's it. Melting away that tension, letting go of that tension. And as you exhale, imagine it leaving your body, seeing it leave out through your nose, going deeper and deeper relaxed. I want you to imagine that this healing white light doesn't just contain relaxation. I want you to imagine that it contains optimism and positivity. And optimism is simply a word that means thinking about the future in a positive way. So as you breathe in that optimism, I want you to notice that when you exhale, worries are leaving your body. Because optimism is the opposite of worries. Worries are when you think about the future in a way that is unpleasant or undesirable. Optimism is when you think about the future in a way that is as you would want it to be. And just as worrying doesn't guarantee that those things that you worry about will happen, neither does optimism. But sometimes you can think about good things happening in the future, and it increases the likelihood of those good things happening just because you notice them. And if that makes sense, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. Breathing in that optimism and exhaling any worries. That's right. And as the worries leave you, you notice that your body's getting deeper and deeper relaxed. As more positivity and optimism go in, notice that the stress, the tension, seems to just melt away, taking you deeper and deeper relaxed. And as you exhale, feel that any of those worries, one by one, are just leaving your body. That's right. And I want you to imagine that you are lying in your bed. It's your bed in your room, but for some reason it feels more comfortable than it normally does. You can feel your head on the pillow, your body on the mattress. You feel warm, you feel relaxed. And I want you to notice that as you continue to breathe in, you can still feel that optimism going in through your nose, and the worries as you exhale are leaving your body. And all I want you to do is I want you to think of 3 things that you're grateful for. Because there are thousands of things that you could be grateful for. And all I want you to do is to think of 3 things that you're happy. And one of those is something about your health. You might be grateful that you're able to see, or grateful that you're able to breathe, or grateful that you have legs and you're able to walk, or something else. Something about your health that you're grateful for. And then I want you to think of something about your mind that you're grateful for. And that could be the ability to think back to memories that make you feel happy. That might be your mind's ability to solve problems. It may be that your mind has the ability for you to be able to learn new things, or something else. But just one thing that you're grateful for from your mind. And then the third thing I want you to be grateful for, to think back something that happened that day that you're grateful for, an experience, an opportunity, maybe something that you did that made you smile, maybe something new that you learned, maybe something that you heard and it made you feel good, or something tasted, some food that you tasted and it tasted good. But I want you to think of just one thing that happened that made you feel grateful. And when you've done that, let me know by nodding your head. That's right. And I want you to notice that when you're grateful for something, it's always something that you already have or has happened. It's in your past. But notice that when you're grateful for it, those good feelings of something that have happened, you get to feel them in the present. You get to feel them right now. And when you think about being grateful for something of your health, your mind, and an experience, just let me know where you feel that good feeling. Sometimes that good feeling has a location in the body, and you can point to it if you can feel it somewhere. Or just nod your head if you know that it feels good to think about things that you're grateful for. That's right. And I want you to use the power of your imagination to imagine that you fall asleep in that bed, as you have done many, many times before. And you also can imagine what it would be like to dream, which you've also done many, many times before. And I want you to imagine that you're asleep and you're sleepwalking, but it's the dream part of you that's sleepwalking. And I want you to imagine that somewhere nearby is an old-fashioned wardrobe. And if you could imagine an old-fashioned wardrobe somewhere nearby your bed, look and see yourself fast asleep in the bed, so you know that the real version of you is fast asleep in the bed. But if you can, in your dream, in your imagination, see an old-fashioned wardrobe, just let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And I want you to imagine that you open the doors of the wardrobe and you walk inside the wardrobe, and perhaps there's coats, perhaps there's clothes, but for some reason, the wardrobe appears to be deeper than it looks. You're able to walk into the wardrobe and keep on walking. And you keep on walking until you find yourself almost in a different world. Only this world is a world a lot like your world, except you feel different. I want you to imagine that in this world, which isn't the real world, this is a world where you are filled with optimism, positivity, constantly believing that you can cope, you can handle things, and that even when there are challenges, that you're either able to accomplish those challenges or difficulties, or at least learn something from them. And if that makes sense, that this world is different to the real world, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. And I want you to imagine that in this world, find yourself in a different bed. It still looks like your bed, but it's a different bed in your world. And I want you to imagine that there you are waking up in the morning. Only in this world, you wake up filled with a sense of optimism and positivity. The very first thing that you do is smile. And maybe take a deep breath in and just feel a sense of positivity, optimism, maybe even excitement for what the day has in store. And if you could imagine what it would be like to wake up immediately thinking positive things, just let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to imagine that you jump out of bed. And I want you to imagine that on this particular day, it's a school day. And on this particular day, you get ready for school. But nobody has to ask you to get ready. I want you to imagine wearing whatever clothes you need to, getting yourself ready, maybe having a shower, brushing your teeth. And each time you do it, I want you to imagine that you're grateful for all these things. When you have a shower, just be grateful for the feeling of the water on your skin. And when you brush your teeth, be grateful that you have teeth. Be grateful that you have a home, running water, a toothbrush. I want you to think of all the things that you can be grateful for. And perhaps when you find yourself having breakfast, you can be grateful for the taste of every bit of food that you eat for breakfast. And if you notice any smells of food or other smells in the morning, grateful that you have a nose that can detect these smells. Maybe in this world, you see members of your own family, and you can be grateful that these family members are in your life, caring for you, supporting you, nurturing you, and helping you. And if you can feel a sense of gratitude for all these good things in your life, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. And I want you to imagine what it would be like to be optimistic about the day ahead. There you are having breakfast, filled with gratitude, but now I want you to get a sense of optimism, positivity about what the day ahead might be like. I want you to think about the lessons that you have coming up that day. And I want you to think in that half an hour journey, there or thereabouts, that actually that's an opportunity to look forward to the day, to remember all those successful times that you accomplished challenges, all the things that you've learnt, all the things that you felt difficult and somehow managed to learn over time. I want you to imagine that sometimes the bigger the challenge, the bigger the opportunity to grow and get stronger. And I want you to imagine that when you're on that journey into school, your brain is filled with optimistic, positive thoughts. Perhaps you could learn something new. Perhaps you can notice a challenge and overcome it. Perhaps you can be grateful for anything that happens that day, anything from the weather to seeing someone, to experiencing something, to doing something. And I want you to notice that the more optimistic you feel, how it changes your body language, that your body language becomes more relaxed. There seems to be less tension around your neck and your shoulders. You hold your arms in a different way. You breathe deeper. In this journey into school, there is a feeling of looking forward to things. And you're not expecting everything to be perfect. You're just optimistic that whatever happens that day, it's going to give you something of value. Because sometimes people think of the world in a way that whatever happens, they win. If they have a good day, then they've had a good day. And if anything hasn't gone to plan, then they're going to learn from it. And then I want you to imagine that you arrive perhaps in the car park outside of the school, still filled with a sense of optimism and positivity, not expecting everything's going to be perfect, but just feeling resourceful, feeling positive, feeling that today's going to be a good day. And then I want you to imagine walking into the school, and perhaps doing registration or some kind of first class. And if you can imagine doing that in a way where you feel positive and optimistic, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. And then I want you to think of one thing that's happened in that class that you can be grateful for. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you found that you could handle a challenge. Maybe you were able to find one thing that was positive in that class, or notice that you were able to be slightly more confident than you normally would be. Maybe you asked a question. Maybe you did something in a slightly different way that represents progress for you. And then I want you to imagine that you leave that class and perhaps go to a different class. And because you feel positive, I want you to notice that how you walk, how you move is slightly different. Perhaps you're making more eye contact with people. Perhaps you're smiling a bit more than you normally would. And notice that as you do that, people start to smile back. I want you to notice that you then join the next class. And it might not be your favorite class, but I want you to think of just one thing that made it good. Maybe you learnt one new bit of information. Maybe you were able to feel more relaxed than you have done before. Maybe you're grateful that your mind has the ability to understand, learn, read, communicate. And then I want you to imagine that it's perhaps lunchtime. And I want you to think of one good thing that could happen at lunchtime to make it feel like that was better than it normally is. And if you can do that, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. And then I want you to imagine that you're grateful for the food that you ate at lunch, that you feel good, filled with energy, ready to deal with the second half of the day. And perhaps there's a class that you like, and perhaps there's a class that you find challenging, but I want you to recall at least one challenge in your past that was really difficult for you, but that you overcame it. And when you can think of that, and try and make it a different one each time, think of a successful challenge that was definitely challenging, definitely tricky for you, but then somehow you managed to overcome that challenge. Find that proof that you have the resilience to overcome challenges. And when you think of that, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. And then I want you to think of one final thing before the afternoon starts, and that is a time where you successfully dealt with change. Something changed in your life, and it became a bit unsettling, but then you got used to that change. And I want you to think that you have evidence in your own experience that every now and then you can be adaptable and able to cope with change. And when you think of just one time, a different one each time you listen to this, a successful time that you coped well with change, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. And then I want you to imagine that the afternoon starts. Maybe it's a class, or maybe it's a lesson. And I want you to think of all the good things that could happen in that afternoon to make it a better day. It doesn't have to be a perfect day, just better than it normally is. Maybe it's because the day is just like a normal day, but you feel a bit more optimistic. Maybe you feel a bit more positive. Maybe you feel more motivated to learn one new thing. Maybe you communicate a bit more with other people. Just one thing that means it's a good day as far as you're concerned. And when you think about what that one thing could be, just let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And then I want you to just imagine that the rest of the day happens and school finishes. And I want you to get a sense of accomplishment, pride, feeling victorious at the end of the day. I want you to imagine how good it would feel to have won the day. Because you've won things before, you've won competitions, you've won games. I want you to imagine what it would feel like to win the day. That the day is finished and you are victorious. When you get a sense of what winning the day would feel like, just let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And then I want you to imagine perhaps going back to the car and maybe sharing your positive experiences with someone close to you. Maybe tell them all the things that you noticed that was better today. Sharing what you learned. Perhaps a challenge that you overcame. Perhaps something that was a bit difficult for you, but you still managed to cope. And if you can imagine sharing what went well, perhaps in that journey back home, with whoever's driving you back, just let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to really notice the response, that when you share good things with people, notice how the energy changes, that they're so pleased that you're focusing on the positives, what you're grateful for, what you've learned, the challenges, the adversity that you overcame. And if you feel that by sharing your good experiences and what you noticed that went well with other people, that makes other people feel good too, let me know by nodding your head. That's right. And then I want you to imagine that you go home and perhaps have that evening meal. And again, you can be grateful for all those things that went well. And not everything goes well every day, but I want you to notice that you can feel grateful for what went well for you. Feel grateful for the food on your plate, how tasty it tastes. Feel grateful for those people that love you and care for you. And then I want you to imagine that you have fun and do whatever you do in the evenings to make yourself feel like you're having your time, playtime, maybe watching TV, maybe playing games. And then I want you to imagine that you're back in your bed thinking back on the day, and I want you to think of 3 things that you were grateful for that day. Something that you're happy about. Maybe one thing that you learned. Maybe one thing that was a challenge that you overcame. Maybe you're grateful for one area that just improved ever so slightly. And if you can imagine what it would be like to think of 3 things that you're grateful for on the previous day, earlier that day, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. I want you to imagine that this is just a dream within a dream within a dream. And actually, that version of you is on the other side of a magical wardrobe. I want you to imagine getting out of that bed, finding that wardrobe, and going through on the other side, coming out into the real world. But it's still in a dream. And then I want you to imagine finding yourself lying in bed. And I want you to imagine climbing into that version of you, but keeping all of that positivity, optimism, and gratitude with you. All of that evidence that you can handle change, that you can handle adversity, that you can handle challenges, that the proof is in your own experiences. And from this point forward, your mind will naturally pay attention to what is good, what is improving, what is getting better, and less on those worries that you can't control. When you start thinking of what if, I want you to change the what if negative things into something positive. Because a worry is when you think, what if, and then something bad happens. Optimism is when you think, what if, and then something good happens. And I want you to realize that you've got more control over that thought than you realize. That if you notice that you're worrying, you can just change the what if for something positive and useful. Something that you would like to experience. Something that takes your life in the right direction. And if your unconscious mind is happy to experiment changing the what ifs from bad things to good things, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. And very soon I'm going to count from 1 to 10 to wake you up. Unless this is at night time, in which you're listening to this and you will just drift off into a deep, deep sleep. So if it's daytime, you will wake up, and if it's nighttime, you don't need to wake up. You can just transition into a deep, deep sleep. Starting to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.